There, yeah, I get excited sometimes. All right, so this, just hang on just a sec. So this is an information session. We're going to learn about learning iridology, and we're going to learn about whether it's the right fit for you a little bit or not. And you need to know I'm not selling you anything. You can't enroll in the program on this course, right? Because that's just a lot of high pressure, and I hate that. I really don't do that. We don't talk about tuition on this webinar because I don't want anyone to feel that kind of pressure. But if you think you're leaning towards wanting to register and you want more information, that's exactly what the Iridology Insight Call, the Zoom meeting, is all about, that you can schedule using the link that you see on your screen. And I'm just going to pop that into the chat box really quick here. Just kind of get this taken care of so that it's available. So there you go. It's in the chat box for you. And again, these are little private one-on-one coaching calls, if you will, to see if this is a good fit for you. Let's talk about it in a more general way now. So I would really like to know what you've got by way of previous training in iridology. And there's 4 choices here, and maybe you've got a different one as well. But I'd like to see this in the chat box. For previous training, is it that you're curious about iridology, but you really don't know much about it yet? Or is it that you already know some Jensenian, Morse, Pesach iridology, and you want to know more about constitutional? Is it that you know some constitutional, but you want to know more? Or is it that you're already an IPA certified comprehensive iridologist? Fantastic. So some of you are brand new to this. You're curious about it, but you don't know much yet. Thank you for weighing in on that in the comments. I really do appreciate that. You're going to find that the more you play with me in the chat box, the more information you're going to get out of me. It fuels me and it makes me want to give you more. So if you want everything I can jam into this session, just let me know in the chat box. So now that we know that some of you are brand new, and I know, of course, one of the attendees tonight is a former student of mine, I want to know your interest level. Is it a 1, I want to transition my work away from mainstream medicine to something more holistic? Is it a 2? Tracy says, I cannot see any chats here. Is this showing up? I can see your comment, Tracy. I can see your comment. And I've got the chat set for everybody to see everything. So yes, I can see you, Tracy. So there we go. Let's hope Tracy can see that too. Okay, so back to the screen. Number 1, is it you want to transition? Number 2, you're already a holistic health coach and you want to add a professional level of iridology to your skill set? Is it 3, I already know iridology, or I know iridology will add value to the work I already do with clients? Is it a 4, I already know iridology, but I'm having challenges integrating it in a meaningful way into my client work? Or is it a 5, I already know iridology, but it's not contributing to the income of my business? So what I'm seeing here is 2s and 3s. Fantastic. So you're already holistic health coaches and you want to add iridology because you know it will add value. Fantastic. That's exactly where we want to head with this. So I want you to stay with me to the end tonight because I've got a little gift for you. And at the end, I'm going to share with you how you can get the gift. So our goal today is to figure out where you are. We've kind of done that a little bit, and to see what it takes to learn iridology and why you would want to do that. And we want to then look at that final goal of using iridology confidently to assess your client needs to create protocols. That is the goal. That's why we're here, is to start you here and show you what it takes to get up to the top of this. And we want to do that because it's a beneficial skill, right? So who needs iridology? I'd love to know what your background is. Are you a herbalist or a nutrition coach? Are you an aromatherapist? Do you do flower essences? Are you a chiropractor, a holistic health coach, functional medicine or functional nutrition specialist? Are you a wellness coach of some kind? Are you a physical therapist? We've got a nutrition coach student. Fantastic, Karen. That is wonderful. Anybody else want to let us know a little bit about where they're from? So we've got people who are new, people who know iridology can add value to what they do, and we've got people who are our holistic nutrition coaches, Reiki practitioner that works with a naturopath. Excellent, excellent. Okay. So why do health professionals like you need iridology? Well, first off, it gives us a deeper insight. When we see iris markings, and we will look at some iris case studies in a few minutes, you'll see correlations between the functioning of different organs more quickly. This is one of the reasons why it's so important that you have an anatomy and physiology course under your belt before you start learning iridology. It's one of the reasons why I only accept people into my course who have a college level anatomy and physiology course done, right? Because we need to understand how the body works, how the organs interact with each other. That helps us to understand more about what we're seeing in the irides. One marking in an iris can actually be interpreted several different ways depending on other markings and current symptoms. We need context. Why else do you need iridology? Well, because it eliminates the need for an intake questionnaire. How many of you are seeing clients now and you use an intake questionnaire? If you use a questionnaire, put a question mark in the comments box for me. I know when I started as a health coach over 4 decades ago, I was taught to use questionnaires, and my questionnaire eventually became about 5 or 6 pages long, and clients didn't like it, right? And I also found they were sloppy often, they either wrote an entire novel for every question, or they gave me one-word answers, which were incomplete. So kind of sloppy, or they wouldn't understand the question and they'd give me information that was way out in left field. When we do iridology properly, we don't need questionnaires. We do need a release form. They need to sign that informed consent form, but we don't need a questionnaire. And that's a good thing. You know, if you can get rid of a questionnaire and not have your client waste time filling it in, and you not have to waste time wading through all of this shotgun pattern of questions that you've asked, then this is going to start saving you time right from the get-go. When we do iridology properly, when we do constitutional iridology properly, it guides the questions we need to ask. So we take the client's symptoms, we overlay them with what we see in the irides, and that's going to teach us what we need to ask to get to the root of the problem, to understand what our client actually needs help with. What I find this does is it helps my clients to feel very heard, because I'm asking questions specifically about them. I'm not asking some random general pattern of questions that anybody could ask. I'm asking questions specifically about that client. You know, one of the complaints we often hear from our clients is that they don't feel like their doctors listen to them. They don't feel heard. And we've seen those studies, right, where it says that the doctor knows within 17 seconds of entering the exam room what he's going to do with you, what prescription he's going to recommend. You know, he comes in with his face down in the chart or looking at his laptop computer that he's bringing into the room, and he's flipping through your file and your tests, but he hasn't asked you much of anything, and he's already making up his mind. Why else do we need iridology? Because it helps us build a deeper rapport with our clients almost instantly. Again, because we are asking questions that are laser focused on what our client needs and what our client has come in concerned about, it helps us to develop that really deep rapport. I have so many clients that at the end of a first appointment, And my first appointment is 75 minutes long. They will say to me, I've told you things I've never told anybody else, because we have that rapport. That's what we want. Iridology helps us keep our appointments laser focused. It helps us to ask only questions that are going to be useful and relevant. And that is a very, very important thing. If we're asking a lot of broad questions, a lot of sort of a shotgun pattern of questions, we're not staying focused, and it's likely we're going to get drawn off on a tangent that's not important to getting our client the results they're looking for right away. When we keep that tight focus, it helps us to get our protocols created while our clients are in the office with us. So I'm curious, those of you who see clients now, how many of you actually create your client programs when your client is not with you? So you see your client, you do an intake, and then you go off and do homework to create a protocol. Elizabeth is saying yes. Okay. And then you have to have another appointment to bring the program to your client, or you email it out. Yes, I do homework. Okay. How would you like to get rid of doing the homework? How would that feel to not have to do homework after your client sessions? Would that be good? What if you could get it all done when you were with your client? Awesome feeling, Jennifer says, fantastic. When we create our protocols in our client sessions, it means our protocols are more laser focused. They are simpler to follow. And that means your clients can actually stick with them and get the results you've said they would get. That's great, because that means that as they get results, they want to come back. They want to talk to you again. If they have a problem come up 3 or 4 years down the road, they call you. They want to talk to you. They want to see you. And it also means that they're going to tell their friends about you. And that's very cool. You know, that free word of mouth advertising is the very, very best. I will tell you that with doing iridology the way I do it, I have clients now that have been with me for 4 decades. That doesn't mean I see them every month. That would be ridiculous. I get them 5 or 6 appointments, you know, over 5 or 6 months, and we get them to a point where they're doing really great. I send them off, they're feeling great. But I know that in a few years, their body's going to shift, something's going to change, and they're going to be out of sync again. They call, they come back in. We do another 3 or 4 or 5 appointments, whatever it takes to get them back on track. Now they're feeling great again. We've adjusted their protocol, their program for where their body's at now. They're feeling good. They disappear for a few years, and you know, they come back, and it's a constant ebb and flow with people coming in, working with me, getting to a good place, and then they disappear for a bit. And then after a few years, they need me again. And I love it. I love it when clients come back to me after so many years, because it means that we've done good work with them before, and they know that we will do good work with them again. Does that sound like something you would like to have happen? If it does, give me an oh yeah in the comments. But you would like your clients to come in for several appointments and then to keep coming back over the years? Yeah. It is such a lovely feeling. With all of this kind of care, your clients will get better results. They will. It's just amazing what happens. And they want to come back, and they like coming back because they want to learn more about their health. They want to learn how to improve. When you keep their protocols laser focused and simple so they can actually follow them, what happens is they want to come back and say, I did everything you said. I'm getting these results. What is the next step? Right. And I often get to the point with the client where I'm saying, you're in a good place. You're in a really good place. There's nothing else we need to do right now. So I'm going to cut you loose, but I'm going to reach out to you in a few months and make sure you're still feeling good. And I just want you to know, if you ever need me, just give me a call and we'll bring you back in. Right. And so I sort of have to kick them out, if you will, because they like coming in so much. And we've done everything we need to. Now, some of my clients just want to come in and talk, and that's great, because I'm happy to be a sounding board and a listening ear for them. So how do you get from where you are through learning your iridology to using it confidently? What does that take? How do we get from here or from there to here? Well, some of you have already done this. You know, you can join a Facebook group, and some of you are already in my Facebook group, and so good to have you with us. But in many Facebook groups, you're going to get lots of different opinions on each post as people post iris photos and everybody jumps in with their 2 cents worth. Have you seen that around? Yeah. And with that, what you're going to get is a lot of conflicting information because you're getting different opinions, because there are so many different styles of iridology and everyone is offering an opinion from the style that they've studied. So, you know, pick up bits and pieces, but then you have to challenge. You get to decide. You have to decide. You have to figure out what information that's been shared is actually current and correct, and what information that's been shared there is outdated and ineffective. Even in a good Facebook group like mine, you will get bits and pieces of information, but you're going to get it in bits and pieces. It's not going to be a cohesive education in my Facebook group. I'm just being honest and upfront. The purpose of the Facebook group is not to teach you iridology for you to become proficient. It's to teach you enough to make you want to learn more, right? It's exactly what it's there for. You could, you know, if the Facebook groups don't turn your crank, you could get books, right? Are they old books or are they new books? Old is not necessarily bad, new is not necessarily good, but neither is old necessarily good and new necessarily bad, right? You have to look at who wrote the book. What is their background? Are these books published on outdated information or on new research? Are they published on old information that is solid and reliable? Or are they published on new information that's flimsy, right? I've got a ton of iridology books on my shelf, and there is a lot of contradiction in them. I've tried going through and reading them. I collect iridology books just because I think it's fun. And every now and then I'll pick one up and I'll try to read it and I'll just go, what the heck are they talking about? That is like, oh my goodness, they were smoking something illegal. Actually, it's legal here in Canada now. So even some of what the old masters like Bernard Jensen used to teach has been proven incorrect. And that doesn't mean we don't love Bernard. It means that the information has progressed. So just because it's in print doesn't mean it's right. That old saying, you can't believe everything you read. Got it? You could binge watch YouTube videos. Some of my students have shared with me their frustration in watching most of the iridology YouTube channels. Have you tried watching YouTube videos? If you have, give me a YouTube in the comments box. If you've gone there looking for information about iridology, seeing what you can learn, just give me YouTube in the chat box here. You know, I've had students say that they've watched videos there, they've searched up other teachers, and they found that even within the scope of one YouTube video by one teacher, the teacher contradicted him or herself several times. What do you do with that? They say that the material on most YouTube videos is poorly organized. There's no logical flow, no stream of thought. So it makes it pretty hard to learn. Have you had any of those frustrating experiences? Have you? If you have, give me a frustrated in the comments box. While you're doing that, here's what Rudolf Schnabel said. Now notice when he was alive, 1881 to 1952. I love his perspective here. He said it was no easy task, and those who believe or would like to believe that handling iridoscopy, it's what he called iridology, can be learned within a few weeks or even days are mistaken and do a disservice to a good cause. There are people out there who will teach a certification course in iridology in 2 or 3 days, and then they cut you loose. Yeah, that's not how you get proficient. I can assure you of that. So let me just introduce myself for a minute here. My name's Judith Cobb. I've been a holistic health coach since before it was a thing, since 1981 to be exact. I've made lots of business mistakes. There were no books to teach me how to do this, to do the business side of this. I had no business mentors, no one to show me the ropes. I didn't even have any really good holistic practicing teachers, like one who could teach me lots of stuff. It was one here or one there, one over there. And I don't regret any of that because I learned a lot the hard way. And I'm a lot wiser now. Now I make sure I've got mentors on different levels, that I've got business coaches, that I do what I need to do to make sure that I'm taking care of myself and can give the best to the people I'm working with and for. Early on in my practice, I became a master herbalist, a natural nutrition clinical practitioner, a certified iridologist. Back then, there were very few schools, very few teachers. There was no internet. There were even fewer books in print. So I became a professional student. Does this look familiar to any of you? Are you professional students? Are you taking any and every course hoping that you're going to find the missing piece, the thing that you need that's going to take you forward? If you're a professional student, give me student in the chat box. And there is no shame in that. Most of us do keep taking courses. Yep, student, yep, absolutely. The courses that I was able to find were mostly correspondence. The focus was on learning how to help clients, but there was no distinction between what the client needed to know now and what they would need to know next. There was no help with learning how to break it down into manageable steps. Every client needed every bit of information from the very beginning. And that meant doing exactly what I used to do and exactly what many of you are doing now. And that is gathering the client's history, making notes about their nutrition and their lifestyle, their supplements, their medications, their surgeries, all that stuff. If you know iridology, I was making notes about their eyes because I didn't have a camera at the very beginning. Then I would go off and I would spend 3 or 4 hours creating this program for them to bring it back to them a few weeks later. And what I found is that in taking all that time to create the program for them, I was giving them long lists, long and discouraging lists of what they needed to do, what their eye rides indicated was wrong. And back then we were teaching that the eyes will change when you fix the diet. So I was telling them how their eyes would change. A precious few of the clients that I worked with could do those crazy detailed programs and got results, but most of them couldn't. And so many of them dropped off, which meant they didn't get results because they weren't doing anything. They quit, right? And I mean, it wasn't good for my business either, but really client focus, they couldn't do it. They weren't moving forward. So I was spending way too much time creating these programs. Is this sounding familiar? Not getting paid for those hours that I'm off doing this homework for them. And it meant that I was taking time away from my family. I had a young family back then and a husband. Still have the husband. My family's just not so young anymore. Just as I was about to quit, thinking I could make more money working at Walmart. That's when I had the opportunity to begin learning constitutional iridology. And this was the better style of iridology. I'd studied ginseng. This was my first training in ginseng iridology here with Jack and Verlyn Richardson, totally correspondence. And this is when I learned about constitutional and how it was different and how it could help me. As I heard about this National Iridology Research Association, which was the original iteration of the International Iridology Practitioners Association. I saw an article about them in a publication that I used to write for. I wrote away, I got their brochure. They had these 3 videos as trainings. I ordered them instantly, started studying them. I still have the tapes, even though I don't have a VHS player, if you know what a VHS player even is. And I played these tapes over and over and over so many times and paused them and made notes and literally probably went through them each 10 times. And it made sense. It worked. It just, suddenly iridology was something that was going to work. It was going to be useful for me again. So the tapes opened a way for me to bring back Bill Caradonna, who was the co-founder of NIRA, to Canada to teach a certification course and to write a certification exam with him. And that was very cool. Very cool. I'm still in touch with Bill. And thanks to the internet, about 4 or 5 years ago, I actually connected with Harry Wolf, which was so much fun. In the ensuing years, I've become a certified instructor, a certified level 3 iridology instructor. There are only 8 of us in the world to date, because it's a tough process to be a level 3 certified instructor. But I'm glad that I've worked that hard, because I can now share such great information with my students. We're going to head into doing some iris analysis. Do you want to look at some eyes with me? If you do, give me the word eyes in the comments box. As we do this, yeah, so Elizabeth wants to see it, and so does Karen and Christine, fantastic. So does Tracy, lovely, and Jennifer, yes, okay, we're 5 for 5, that's good. And so what I want you to see in this is how markings work together, how the eyes teach us the questions we need to ask, and how important it is to know the body, to have the anatomy and physiology. Now, that's not just my requirement. If you want to study iridology and be certified with the International Iridology Practitioners Association, they will require proof of a college level A&P course with a grade over 80%. And they will have to check those credentials before they issue your final certification. So it's not just me. I just want it before you start studying with me, not after. All right, here we have the eyes of a woman who was in her mid-40s when we took these photos. Her primary concern was that she wanted to lose 20 pounds. Now, I don't rush in with weight loss programs. I actually really dislike working with weight loss. It's not my forte. I'm a hormone fixer, not a weight loss person. So instead, I like to custom build lifestyle eating programs based on needs and goals. And I find that when I focus on that and choosing the right supplements, people will often lose weight if they need to, but I'm really more concerned about their overall health. So I first saw Kay in early September of the year she and I met. She was an active woman. She was typically working out 4 to 5 times each week with a variety of cardio and resistance training. Her diet was decent, a little shy on the veg and a little shy on the protein, a little high in the carbs. It wasn't way out of whack, but it was a little out of balance. She worked full-time in her husband's retail business. I think she had 4 or 5 grown adult children. As we talked, she chatted about her carb cravings and about how, as our daylight gets shorter here, I'm in Calgary, Canada, which means we have short daylight in the winter, long daylight in the summer. So as we were coming up to winter and our daylight was getting shorter, she said her energy was going into hibernation mode. She always felt like she would shut down energy-wise for the winter. So I just asked her if anyone had ever checked her out for seasonal affective disorder. Now, if you live further south, you may not know what that is, but it's where your energy is affected because you can't get enough bright sunlight. She said no one had ever checked her, but that she always felt better after their annual winter vacation to Cuba. So here's what I noticed. She has what we consider to be lymphatic eyes. They're basically blue. She's got white clouding in her eyes. This white clouding that is hugging around the pupil tells us that she is predisposed to having elevated acid levels throughout her body. So I asked her about joint stiffness, and she said she was just starting to have some, and she was using over-the-counter medications for it. Now notice the difference between these photos. These photos have what we call frontal lighting, which means we've got bright light, and it's because it's coming in from the front, it's going to hide contours on the surface of the iris. When we turn off one of those lights, can you see now that we've got some creases in our eyes? If you can see these, give me the word wrinkles. Give me the word wrinkles if you can see these things coming around here. Yeah, excellent. Okay, so these tell me that she burns through her B vitamins, vitamin C, calcium, and magnesium very quickly. They tell me she is a list maker. that she likes to always be on the go, but it also tells me that she's prone to feeling stressed if she's not well nourished. So I asked her about her ability to handle stress. She said it gets worse in the winter. She likes to go for long runs outside. And in the winter here, it's not so much a daylight hours thing, it's the amount of ice on the ground. You don't want to be running outdoors very much here because the likelihood of you slipping and falling and breaking something is right up there. So she found that she handles stress less well in the wintertime because she can't get outside for her runs. Now, these creases tell us that she will be a little bit more prone to some risks of mental health challenges. So that could be some depression, some winter blues, could be getting into full-blown depression. Then I asked her, remember, she's concerned about the fact that she wants to lose weight. And I'm thinking, she wants to lose weight. She's heading into winter. She's got hibernation mode starting to kick in. That's not going to help her lose weight. So I need to look deeper to understand why things are the way they are. Looking at this area closest to her pupil, it's very dull and very dark, which tells me that she likely has problems digesting proteins. So I asked her about that. When you eat protein, how does it feel? If you eat meat, if you eat chicken or beef or fish, how does it feel? And she said, yeah, I don't eat very much because it just sits heavy. It doesn't feel good in my stomach. We've got some sort of rusty colored pigments in her eyes scattered all over. That tells us that her liver wants to influence things. Her liver wants to affect many things in her body, which it can. Remember, from your A and P, the liver does over 500 different jobs, right? And so this also tells me that she probably needs her B vitamins methylated. She probably needs the methylfolate and the methylcobalamin, right? Because she probably cannot take an unmethylated folate and an unmethylated cobalamin to turn them into the useful form. And we know that people who don't methylate well also have a greater risk of mental health challenges. We've got some orange showing up around in here as well, which always makes us wonder genetically, what is her pancreas doing? What does her pancreas want to do, right? Everything we're seeing in the iris that we've talked about so far is genetic. It's what her parents have blessed her with. And so as we look at this and we see she's got the orange, and we know that the orange says pancreas, might have some question marks. Well, that could account for her blood sugar issues where she's craving carbs and eating carbs. She has this white haze at the top of her eye. This is actually in the cornea. This is not in the iris. She wasn't born with this. This has a very strong correlation to liver enzyme insufficiency, which can lead to elevated cholesterol and elevated triglycerides and unbalanced blood sugars. How many of those things could have an impact on weight? So I asked her about her cholesterol. She said it was not a problem. I asked her about her hormones. She said she was perimenopausal and starting to have hot flashes. Okay, so looking at all of those things, we're starting to get a picture for why she's got the weight, right? We've got liver, which plays key roles in hormones and how your body processes carbs and fats. We've got pancreas. We've got digestive questions as well. We've got a lot of things pointing to why she might have problems. So then when we look in her left eye, and we look right in here, we see this little mark which says adrenal glands genetically want to be troublemakers. Adrenals handle stress and inflammation. Oh, she's getting a little stiffer in her joints. And we already know that she internalizes her stress. In her right iris, again, we see that she's got a little bit of yellowish tinge, a slight yellowish tinge to this cloud right here. And we also see that she's got this fiber zipping off across others. So these are things that teach us about her kidneys. And so we've got some question marks about her kidneys, and we need to think, could that be playing a role somehow in her weight? We've got an uneven interpupillary border, which again suggests some challenges possibly with digestion. Again, this is genetic. We haven't even looked at the sclera yet. Her sclera has volumes of information in it. So the irides are genetic. It's what your parents gave you and your grandparents and your great-grandparents. The sclera is what you're doing with it. It's what's going on right now. So putting her answers together with her symptoms of the weight that did not want to come off, I was able to suggest some different ideas for increasing her protein to help stabilize her blood sugar and direct her more towards her low carb vegetables. And of course, we explained a lot of how the low carbs, especially the leafy greens, would help with her acid balance in her body and her liver function. And they would also provide organically methylated Bs. So that's always a good thing. I did suggest using a hydrochloric acid supplement for her protein digestion. Again, if we could get her eating more protein and get her breaking it down well, that's going to help to stabilize her blood sugars. We recommended a methylated B complex as well. Now, she doesn't drink coffee or alcohol or soda, so I didn't need to get on her case about that. But I did suggest that since I can't diagnose seasonal affective disorder, that she speak with a doctor about that. And I had contact with a doctor who specializes in SAD. And I gave her the name. I gave my client the name and phone number. I said, it might be worth it for you to talk to this doctor because your symptoms sound like you could have seasonal affective disorder. And if the doctor agrees with that, if the doctor says that's correct, then there are things that we can do that will balance the SAD, but help you to lose weight. Oh, that was interesting. So she went to see the doctor. The doctor said, textbook classic case of seasonal affective disorder. And he prescribed light therapy for her using a SAD lamp. She started using the SAD lamp as it was recommended, which is for 20 to 30 minutes within the first hour of getting out of bed every day at about the same time of the day. And she came back to me that month later after after our first appointment, and she'd only been using this lamp for not very long. And she said, I can't believe it. This light is so good. My energy is so amazing. She said, I'm not even craving carbs anymore. I am eating protein and I'm digesting them better, but I'm not craving carbs. And I've lost 10 pounds. I haven't even tried to lose 10 pounds. I'm feeling so energized. So it was fantastic to me and absolutely wonderful that I could look at her eyes, understand why she was likely going into SAD, and could then make some dietary recommendations and some supplement recommendations that also refer her out to someone else who could make a firm diagnosis of what I suspected, and we could get her back on track. So now, oftentimes clients will disappear for several years and then they will come back for a few appointments. I haven't actually seen Kay in many years, but the interesting thing is she keeps sending me clients. She's in a good place. She doesn't need me. That's fine. She doesn't need to come see me. But I constantly, probably about 4 times a year, I get a call from someone that says, Kay sent me. Fantastic, fantastic. So how did looking at her eyes, assessing her eyes, help me to put everything together? It taught me about her digestion and the kind of support she'd need there. It taught me about her liver and her pancreas and how those things genetically could be messing with everything. It taught me that she probably needed the methylated Bs, which were such a lifesaver for her. And so putting it all together and not necessarily dissecting every single mark, because that would be ridiculous. It would be foolish to spend hours dissecting every mark when every mark is not her concern right now. Her concern was weight. So we look at the eyes and ask, what do we see in her eyes that teach us about why she's gaining weight and is having problems losing it? Does that make sense? What about ox bile? Ox bile is specifically if there's a gallbladder issue and problems with the gallbladder releasing the bile, or they've had the gallbladder removed, right? She had not had gallbladder surgery, and there was no reason to suspect that it was a bile problem. This had to do more with not just the bile, but the chemistry inside the liver of how the liver actually processes carbs. So we didn't need to go to ox bile. Does this all make sense? If this makes sense, give me a makes sense in the comments box. Christine, that was a really good question about the ox bile. Really good. Nice to see you're processing the information and looking for application here. That's wonderful. That's also what I expect of my students, is that they will process what they're learning in the context of what they already know, so we can build on it. Here's another one of my clients. Now, she's been a client of mine off and on again for about 25 years. I started working with her before she and her husband had their children, and those kids are now in their early 20s. So this is Michelle, and she has what we consider to be a biliary constitution. When I look at her eyes, the structure of her eyes, the way all the fibers are sitting, tells me she is a connective tissue subtype. Now that's really interesting. I am constantly learning new things, right? I mean, that's what we do in this industry. You can't stop learning, which is why all of us are perpetual students, right? And so I hadn't done any iridology work with her in probably 20 years, right? Because she had disappeared for that long. So when she came back in, I had an updated camera. We took her photos, and this is what we got. I'm looking at these, I'm looking at everything I'm seeing, the way the fibers are sitting in the body of the iris. And I asked her, are you having issues with like blood sugars, and what happens to you if you sprain an ankle or stress a joint? And she's looking at me like, how are those things related? And so I said, well, just can you give me the information, then I'll help you understand why those are related. And she said, well, funny you should talk about if I hurt myself, if I have an injury, what happens? She said, because do you remember my sister? And I said, yes, I do. Her sister is a lovely lady who's not well at all. And she said, well, my sister Sue went and got genetically tested. She has a condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I'd never heard of that before. And I said, well, teach me about Ehlers-Danlos. She said, it means that she doesn't repair her collagen well. She doesn't rebuild her body. And she said, since my sister went and got tested, I went and got tested, and I have Ehlers-Danlos as well. This all in part, one of the things this teaches us is her connective tissue is genetically not strong. Okay, so that was one thing. When we see this many of these petal shapes in the eyes, it tells us she has a creative side to her, and she very much does. But it also tells me that she's prone to hormonal imbalances, which is why she came to see me 25 years ago. She was concerned that she would not be able to conceive and that she would have problems with her pregnancies. And so she wanted help with that. She was very intuitive even back then. And so back then, all those decades ago, she was right on track. Nutritionally, lifestyle-wise, she had all of her ducks in a row. She was doing the good work. She was enjoying the good benefits. But in the last 25 years, life has happened. Her life has done a lot of different directions, and she's had some struggles. Now, none of that is going to show up in her irides, because the irides are genetic, and changes in our life don't change our genes. But the changes that she's experienced in her life mean that she's not taking very good care of herself anymore. She doesn't eat well. She doesn't get physical activity, even of a gentle kind. She doesn't make sure she's getting enough sleep. So I asked her about all of these details. I asked her about her diet, not great. She's got these 2 young adult sons. She'll cook for them. She'll rarely eat herself. She skips meals. She eats, if she eats, it's not good quality. She lives on coffee at work. Her assistant, the people who assist her at work just bring her a steady stream of coffee all day, right? Because that's what she asked for. She's gaining weight and she has menopausal issues. Again, she's got this white haze. This is a really pronounced white haze around the edge of the iris for someone who's only in her mid-50s. I think she's a little young to have that, but now that it's there, we're not going to be able to get rid of it. When we look at this white haze again, this is saying the liver enzymes are out of balance and probably not handling her carbs and her fats very well, which will lead to issues with triglycerides, cholesterol, blood sugar balance. These markings right here tell us that right now she is not handling carbs well. She is fermenting them instead. When I see this, it means one of a couple of things. Number 1 is systemic yeast. Number 2 is flirting with type 2 diabetes. There is some kind of fermentation happening in this body, again, not handling her carbs well. So as I'm looking at these and I'm looking at this, I said to her, Michelle, can I be really blunt with you? And she said, yeah, I mean, we've known each other for so long, right? I said, Michelle, I'm not a doctor and you know that. And you know I can't diagnose. When I see these signs together, they are often in someone who is a type 2 diabetic. And she stopped and then she started to cry. And I said, Michelle, tell me what's going on for you. Let me support you through this. And she said, my dad is a type 2 diabetic. I promised my boys I would never put them through that. So I asked her, what do you want to do about it? Are you willing to do the hard work, to do the emotional work and the physical work to rebalance this? Because it is rebalanceable. Type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle disease for 95% of the people who have it. And it's a lifestyle disease for her. And she said, yes, she was willing to do the work. So we started working with that. When we look down here, we see that this part of the eye has a slight yellow tinge to it. That is a suggestion that the liver might not be happy. So what did I recommend for Michelle? And again, doing all of this in the scope of a 75-minute appointment. Recommended that she eat every 3 to 4 hours. And that every time she eats, she should have some kind of a protein and she should have some help digesting that protein. So a hydrochloric acid supplement would be excellent. Recommended that she have leafy greens every day and suggested, a serving about this big. And suggested that she needed to cut out the coffee and just switch over to hot water. That's an easy thing to do. And it's a really good thing to do. Within about 6 weeks, we met up again and the weight was starting to come off. Her energy was better. She was beginning to discover what some of her emotional roadblocks for food and for eating are. And she was discovering what some of the roadblocks are for why she struggles to take care of herself. And so with all of this, we were able to help get her started on her path to understanding not only what she can do to help herself physically, but what she can do to help herself emotionally. What was something in what we saw in her eyes that resonated with you, that was an aha moment? What was something you maybe learned or something that you're going, oh, I'll bet I know somebody who's got that. Take just a moment and drop that in the chat box. Let me know, what was your aha moment from looking at this set of eyes? It'll take you a minute to type, and I know it will. So I'm just going to pause here while you give it a little bit of thought. The cloudy perimeter. Karen, thank you for that. That is a remarkable indicator that gives us so much information. I was surprised that you went outside the iris. Oh, yeah, well, you know, when we see the iris and that's our genetic potential, and the sclera is what you're doing with it, we put those together on top of the symptoms, and it gives us a very dynamic view of what's going on. Not that we can name disease, but we can certainly get a feel for the imbalances, and we can recommend that our client go back to their doctor and get some testing done if it's appropriate, right? Anyone else have anything else they want to weigh in on that? We've got one more eye to look at tonight, one more set of eyes. So let's look at, and if you're still typing, go ahead and finish. Let's look at our third set of eyes tonight. Now, these are true brown eyes. These are what we consider to be hematogenic. Now, this is a young Asian woman in her mid-30s. She and her husband came to me. They'd been trying to get pregnant for 3 years. They'd been to the fertility clinic. They were very unhappy with the treatment they received there. They felt like they were treated like a number. They did not feel like they were interest or important clients or patients there. They just felt like it was a treadmill, and they were not happy with that. They were offered IVF and they wanted to avoid that. So just before we continue with this case, Karen says, it is so interesting how different the pupils are with each individual. Oh, and the pupils give us so much information. We're not even really touching on pupils in this little mini class tonight. So this young woman, anyone who's younger than I am is a young woman, just saying. And so when they came in, and her husband came to every appointment with her, and it wasn't as a control freak, it was so that he could be supportive, so that he could hear what we were talking about, ask questions, understand the process, and help out in any way he could. He was an absolute gem. If she could clone him and sell the clones, she'd be stinking rich. He's that good of a fellow. So this young lady's menstrual cycles were running 90 days apart. That in and of itself is a red flag. That is the first indicator that she could have polycystic ovarian syndrome. So when I asked her if anyone had ever said she had PCOS, she said, yep, the fertility clinic, they said she has PCOS. And then I asked her, has anyone ever suggested you might have type 2 diabetes? Again, notice I'm not saying you have, I'm asking if anyone else has said this to her. She said, oh yeah. Now that was a bit of a mind blown experience because she's petite, she's not overweight, and yet she's got the diagnosis of type 2 diabetes, right? What we know is that type 2 diabetes and PCOS are best friends. They usually happen together. So I asked her what had her doctor taught her about foods. Absolutely nothing. He said, just take the metformin and use the Clomid to trigger hyperovulation in the months you want to try to get pregnant. Great. Not great. Because of her history with type 2 diabetes, I also asked whether she had a history of yeast infections, and she said, yep, and she had one right now. So as we look at her eyes, when we see brown eyes like this, we know that her weak links are liver and blood. Those are the areas we're likely to see more issues. In her case, liver. She has the very beginning of that white edge starting up here. She's only in her 30s and she's doing this already. But that is, again, that's an indication of the liver enzymes being out of whack, not handling the carbs properly, which can lead to unbalanced cholesterol. That's a common problem with type 2 diabetes, isn't it? We often see T2D, cholesterol, triglycerides, all in the same profile here. And we know that liver and cholesterol have strong impacts on the hormone balance, right? Does that sound familiar? If that sounds familiar, give me a right on in the comments box. Just let me know that that sounds familiar, that liver has a strong influence on hormones. Hopefully that's something you've learned in your A&P. Thank you, Christine. Thank you. Appreciate that. Anybody else who wants to give a right on? Karen says yes. Yeah, yes, liver influences hormones. Excellent, excellent. And so she brought in her lab tests. I always ask my clients to bring in lab tests. And she did have slightly elevated cholesterol, and she had elevated hemoglobin A1C. She also has these wrinkles coming around in her eyes. So we know that she burns through her B vitamins, vitamin C, calcium, and magnesium, right? We see in her left eye at about 55 minutes. Can I see it on this screen? At about 55 minutes. I'm on the wrong computer. I've got computers that have different resolutions. We can use this one right here. This is a different one that I was thinking of. Oh, there it is right there. And so these little brown pigments are enough for us to think that she doesn't methylate well. Christine is saying by wrinkles, you mean circular lines? Yes. These lines that are coming around that look like they're lines on a bullseye target. Those are the ones we mean. So again, we're looking and we're saying that, yeah, she probably doesn't methylate her Bs very well. Now, we need to remember that there's no one single indicator in the eye for infertility or for PCOS. There is never one single indicator for one problem. We always want to triangulate. We want to see how many different markings point to one problem. So in both eyes, we have a black line coming down through the ovary area. So that's important. We know we've got liver. We've got lots of these little pigmenty things that are about liver. We know she's got a blood sugar imbalance, and we know that another marker for liver up here, right? So talking about her diet was really high carb and really low nutrient. Now, what I find is that as a general rule, my Asian clients, when they come to Canada, they keep the white rice and the sweet sugary sauces, and they add to that the worst we have to offer for food, right? So she was eating a super high carbohydrate diet. And, I don't like to do really harsh diets with people, but we didn't have a lot of time to waste. They'd already spent 3 years trying to get pregnant. So I'd asked her if she had a yeast issue. She said, yes, she had a yeast infection right now. Very common to do that with a type 2 diabetic situation. And so we did a very strict anti-candida diet with her. Now, her husband, bless his heart, as she was looking like a deer in the headlights, panicking about how am I going to eat like this, he reached over and took her hand and said, don't worry, darling. I will take over all the food preparation. I can do this for both of us. You just need to eat what I make for you. And she just relaxed. It was good. She was fine with that. He followed the diet too. They were in this together. It was excellent. Beyond that, what we did is we did some anti-yeast supplements for the first couple of months. We did an excellent methylated B maternity vitamin. We did liver support, a couple of different directions, and rotated through some different things. We specifically focused on herbs for the follicular phase of her menstrual cycle and the luteal phase. So we did a cyclical program where it was certain herbs for the first couple until she ovulated, and then certain herbs after she ovulated. We were able to clear up the yeast within about 4 weeks. We kept her on the anti-yeast program for we worked together for over 18 months. And actually through her pregnancy, it was 27 months that we worked together. And we kept her on the anti-yeast program the entire time because it also served to balance her blood sugars really well. It took us a few months to take her menstrual cycles from 90 days to 35 days. A 90-day cycle is always infertile. A 35-day cycle, fertile a lot of the time. we had her track her ovulation indicators, and we monitored how her ovulation was getting stronger and better. We maintained a monthly appointment for all of those years that we worked together. Finally, she was at 18 months of us working together, and she wasn't pregnant yet. And I sat down with her chart and I cried, because I was going to have to tell her that we'd done everything we could, and I didn't think she was going to conceive. And I wasn't sure, what to do next, because we'd done everything I could. I'd spent hours doing extra research for her, not because of her eyes, but because I wanted to understand. When they came in for that appointment at 18 months, they said, "We want to talk to you." I'm thinking, yeah, they're going to fire me. I know that. And they said, "We did a pregnancy test this morning. It was positive." We thought we'd worked hard for the first 18 months. We hadn't worked hard yet, because the next goal was that we had to keep her pregnant. PCOS has a high risk of ectopic pregnancy. And if they're not ectopic, a high risk of miscarriage, right? And the chances of her going into gestational diabetes were about 80%, right? So the work had just begun. They worked so beautifully and so well, and we kept meeting every month. We kept tweaking her program, always coming back to her eyes to understand more of what we needed to do now, even though nothing in the eye rides had changed. As she would get different lab tests back, we would come back and look at her eyes and go, "Now, why is that lab test coming back like that?" And we were able to keep in front of the curve for the entire time. She did not develop gestational diabetes. As a matter of fact, she had a very healthy baby boy. I want to say he was about 7 pounds, which is a beautiful, perfect weight, in a 3-hour labor and delivery. Yeah, tiny little Asian woman pops that baby out. We were so excited, so excited. So what did you get from that? What was an aha moment for you there? Anything that you went, "Ooh, didn't know that one before"? We'll give you a minute to lightning fingers and give us a comment here. Every eye is so different. And again, when we look at eyes, even if we're looking at eyes that are similar, if the symptoms are different and the sclera is different, we have to come at them from a different angle. We have to come at them not from a 1 mark equals 1 problem angle, but from the perspective of, what do these eyes teach us about this person? That eye might have been pretty complex. I'm not seeing a comment come in just yet. If you're typing, keep typing. What if, Christine says, "I am just noticing the eyes and the lines. It takes a while to get used to it." Yes, Christine, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. There's so much going on in an eye. And that's why when I teach my students, I teach them how to focus on what they need to pay attention to in that moment. It was amazing, all amazing to me. All the different eyes. I mean, absolutely, absolutely, Christine. There are no 2 eyes that are the same. It's quite remarkable. What if I could guide you through learning iridology in such a way that you could start learning using what you were learning after the second lesson? Now, you wouldn't be to the depth of what we've gone over today, but if you had learned things by the end of the second lesson that could be helpful, how would that benefit you? If you could tell by looking at an eye that this person is prone to being too acidic, or they're prone to having the liver run the show, or things like that, how would that help you? What if you could be supported in your learning from the very beginning and for years to come? So not just supported in learning while you're in the class, but literally for years afterwards. How would that make learning easier? How would it make learning be a more comfortable experience for you? Would those kinds of things work for you? Karen says that would be awesome. Yeah. So let me introduce you to the dynamic iridology assessment system. This is a 45-hour training program just for the curriculum. So we meet once a week for 2.25 hours for 20 weeks. And every class session is recorded for playback on demand, so you can go back and review. Christine says it would be nice. People are wary of mainstream medicine, especially now. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. The dynamic iridology course also includes live group mentoring twice each month. So we have 2 times scheduled every month where students and graduates can come to a Zoom meeting and can ask questions, can ask for help with cases they're working on. If they're working towards certification and they need some extra help and mentoring to prepare for the exam, we do that in these office hours as well. With the office hours, you are never kicked out of them. After you graduate, after you certify, I've got students that graduated years ago that still come back to office hours. We have a private social media group on the MeWe platform, which is different from Facebook. And this is only for my students and alumni. Many of you, I think, are in my public group in Facebook, and that's lovely. When you enroll in the course, you are welcomed into our MeWe group. And again, it's for students and alumni. You don't get kicked out of that. We include a 225-page digital textbook. So you download your textbook. It's a textbook that I wrote, and it has been approved of by the IPA organization as being correct. And a 45-page digital study notes package. You can download that as well. Beauty of keeping things digital is there's research going on with iridology. And as that research proves different things, IPA updates the curriculum we are supposed to teach. And by keeping my textbook digital, it means I can easily update the textbook for you. And all of my students and grads always have access to the most recent copy, the most recent version. So you don't have to keep buying a textbook because 3 pages are different, right? It's always updated. I include certification for the IPA mentoring process. So your course is 20 weeks long, and for up to 10 months after you complete your classwork, your class meetings with me, I will mentor you towards certification if you want to certify. Not everyone wants to certify. Certification is rigorous. It takes time. There's work you do here, but I will mentor you if you want to certify. And you've got a 10-month window, very doable. I've had students finish certification and pass their certification exam in 4 months. So very doable to do it in 10. So knowing that, if this sounds interesting and you're thinking, I would like to have a chat, not a high pressure sales call, but a chat to see if this is really a good fit for me, there's that URL again, tinyurl.com/dynamic-iridology-insight. Make a note of it and hop on there and schedule a time for us to have a conversation. Now, these conversations are open to people who have completed a college level anatomy and physiology course. So if you are a nutrition coach and your program included a separate anatomy and physiology course as a part of your training, and you can show a grade of over 80%, you are good to go, right? We need to just double check with IPA to make sure that course is recognized by them. If you don't have A&P, reach out to me. I can connect you with an excellent self-paced anatomy and physiology course. When you've done that and you've passed it, you've got your transcript, then we can get you enrolled in the dynamic iridology program. I am truly not interested in teaching everyone. I am only interested in teaching people who want to work with iridology professionally. That means you've got A&P under your belt already. It raises the bar significantly from people who think it would be fun to know iridology versus people who are saying, I want to use this professionally in my clinic. It raises the bar, and you will find you learn so much more by having that high bar. This is Mike Knapp. He's a naturopath from Arizona. I asked him, why did you take my course? He said the interactive online platform with an experienced teacher and practitioner, that was a selling point. You said the fundamentals of iridology could be learned in this format, and that's what was delivered, plus a lot more on how to integrate it directly into current practice. I'm very happy with this training, so thank you. That is one thing that many teachers don't include. Many teachers only teach you what the markings are. They don't teach you how to apply it in a clinical setting. In dynamic iridology, we do that. We teach the markings, we teach the integrations, we practice what questions do you need to ask when you have these symptoms and these markers. We teach what recommendations would you make? Not that I'm telling you what recommendations to make, but I want you to draw on what you already know. If you're a nutrition specialist, what foods would you recommend? How would you change this person's diet? If you're a herbalist, what herbs would you want to recommend? If you know vitamins and minerals, what vitamins and minerals or aromatherapy? I want to begin teaching you how to dig into your brain and match what you know up with the iridology you're learning. Right, that's where the power of this is. Jacqueline Stegman is an aromatherapist. She's also an EMT. She said, I'm excited and thrilled to be in this class. I'm a certified functional nutrition counselor with a healthcare background. I thought with all the ANP classes I've taken in the past that I knew a lot about the body, but I'm learning so much more. Judith is a wonderful teacher, so knowledgeable and patient with my endless questions. She was about halfway through the class when she sent me this. I would recommend her class to anyone. She is actually just last week passed her certification exam. She is now a certified iridologist. You can find her listed on the IPA website now. Very cool, very cool. I asked Karen Choate how learning constitutional iridology helped her in her business. She said, it's helped me to understand the relationships between different organs and organ systems more in depth. She is a certified natural health professional from Trinity College, right? So she's got the background, but the course gave her a deeper understanding. It gives her, iridology gives her the advantage of seeing the potential for different genetic traits and qualities that may be underlying. By understanding the constitution, for example, you can extrapolate how the person's body will likely respond to applications of healing methods. Therefore, it's helped me to expand my knowledge and increased efficiency at providing more precise recommendations for health-oriented options. Love that. This is Leah. Leah is such a lovely student. She sent me this, and we don't issue these certificates anymore. This was a few years ago. But she said, I'm really grateful for everything that you have given us. For me, this knowledge is very precious. She was a naturopathic student from Slovenia. English was not her first language. Our class times were going to be at 2 a.m. for her. Not reasonable for a student who was also a mother with children. So she did the entire course by watching the class recordings, doing the quizzes for every course or for every lesson, and completing the course very successfully that way. So loved that we formatted the course in such a way that even someone in a different time zone, even someone with a scheduling conflict, can still do this, because she could work it out to come to one of the mentoring sessions every month. And she was doing that to make sure that she had all of her questions answered. So there again, have we got you thinking about what your business would look like if it had iridology? If you could offer iridology, get that deeper insight very quickly, and create your protocols in your sessions rather than doing homework. Have you thought about that? Are you getting that picture? Here again is that link. And again, if you've got the A&P and you're really serious about looking at this, schedule a time. Let's talk. Let's see if this is the right course for you. Let's see if it's the right fit. Let's see if June 8th is the right start date for you. Let's see if this is going to work for you. It's not about putting on the thumb screws and coercing you into doing something with some kind of a false limitation on this. Like, and there are only 10 seats per class. That is the one limitation I have, because I insist on small groups so that I can meet my students' needs better. If I've got too many students, I can't do a good job. So some frequently asked questions. I live in a time zone that puts this class at midnight where I live. Can I still sign up for this course and be successful? Leah did it. I've had another student in France who got up at 1 a.m. every week for class. That was her way of doing it, and it worked. I've had many students that have had to do it by recording only, and it does work. You can be successful. Maybe you've got a scheduling thing where it conflicts with your work hours, or it conflicts with a commitment you have with your church or something like that. That's okay. That's why we've got all the extra supports in place. How long will it take you to do this? Well, 20 weeks for the coursework. And then if you want to certify, you've got 10 months from your last course date, your last class date, to complete certification. And I will walk you through that process. Now, you do need to know that what's not included in your course fees, your exam fee with IPA, and your membership fee for IPA. Those are your responsibility. How much time do you need to set aside to do this program? Well, 2.25 hours for the classes, obviously. Sometimes they're 2.5 hours. And 3 to 4 hours a week for studying and for practicing. So try to block off about 6 hours a week. The students who do that do much better. And it's pretty obvious in class which students are putting in the time and which ones aren't. I'm going to be out of town next month. Will I fall too far behind? If you've got access to the internet, join us from anywhere in the world. And if you're joining us from a beach in Hawaii, we're all going to be just a tad jealous, I think. But no, if you're in a different time zone and it's just not going to work, catch the class the next day on the recording. It's so flexible. You can do this. You can fit it in. How do I know if the course is right for me? Well, if you're a nutritionist, a herbalist, a naturopath, a massage therapist, I've got dental hygienists, I've got physiotherapists, and you've got your A&P with a grade of over 80%, and you're looking for a way to go in a more holistic direction, if you're a registered nurse, for instance, if you're looking for a way to add a faster and more accurate assessment tool that's not going to cost your clients money for testing, then this is probably for you. If you want to eliminate that unpaid homework, stop creating protocols on your own time, this is really for you. When will you know enough to start learning to start using what you've learned? I want you to start looking at eyeballs after the very first lesson. You will start learning iridology principles after the second lesson. And I would hope that you will start using it immediately. The sooner you use it, the more solid it becomes, the better, the stronger of an iridologist you will be. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, give me a makes sense in the comments box. I want you getting right in there. What else do you need to buy for this course? Makes sense, Jennifer? Yeah, right? We want you getting your feet wet. All you need to buy for this course, to do it, all of your learning materials are provided. You need to have a lighted magnifying glass. You can get these on Amazon, and a pen light. You might already have a good pen light. That's all you need to buy. Everything else is provided for you, right? So for 50 bucks, you too can start iridology. Right, start learning iridology. What if I don't like it? Can I get a refund? We do not offer refunds. This is a professional class. I invest heart and soul on your behalf. My goal is to help you be successful. And because you have access to the complete textbook and your cheat sheets and some of those downloadable materials right from the get-go, we do not offer refunds, right? I will do my utmost to help you be successful. So here is your gift for being with me tonight. I will give you a downloadable iridology map. This is the iridology map we use in the class, and we sell these for 30 bucks. So this is a sweet little gift. What I'm going to suggest is I'm going to post another link in the chat box. This is how you can reach me on Facebook. So find me on Facebook using that link. Let me know you were in this class, that you took this mini class on May the 18th, and that you would like the download link for the iridology map. And I will send you the download link. Okay, that's all it takes. Just reach out to me on Facebook and I'll give you the download link. All right, there you go. You'll notice if you've looked at iridology maps, this is a much simpler map than most you've ever seen, because a lot of maps have stuff you don't need, seriously. So I'm going to encourage you again. What if we don't use Facebook? Tracy, good question. Tracy, you and I have been in touch. I think, do you have my email address? You're welcome to email me. Just shoot me an email and remind me to do that, and I'll shoot you the link. Okay. Or you know what? If you're on Instagram, find me under iridology.education, and you can reach out to me that way as well. Okay. So Karen, are you receiving my emails, Karen? If you're receiving my emails, you have my email address. So shoot me a message there and I will make sure you get the link. I get it. I don't like being on Facebook either. It's just a really great way to advertise right now. That's why we've moved our group support over to the MeWe platform, so that we can be off that algorithm and not be followed and not have all of our data mined and sold. And right. So yeah, reach out to me through just email and I will make sure you get taken care of. Again, thank you for being with me. I would love to know tonight what you're thinking. I would love to know, is iridology just the coolest thing ever? Or do you think, yeah, not for me tonight? And I'm not asking for a commitment here to enroll in a class. I'm just asking if you think iridology is cool. And again, you've got that link to reach out if you'd like to book a time for us to chat, and we can look at what it would take to get you into iridology. This is fun. This is fun. Tracy says it almost seems unreal. Remember that doctors in Italy and Germany and Russia use iridology as an assessment tool. As a matter of fact, in Germany, you have to be a medical doctor or a naturopath in order to do this. Let's see, there's more comments coming in. Jennifer says it's cool. Christine LaPlume says, of course it's cool. I like that. Thank you. That's so fun, Christine. Karen says it would bring more meaning and more depth to our depth of service to our clients. It does. Christine asks, what is your IG again? It's iridology.education. Let me just give that to you here. There you go. Right. So you can message me through Instagram, and I could send you the link through Instagram as well for the download. And absolutely, I would love to chat with any or all of you about the course, just to talk about how cool it is and how it could be helpful to you. How it could be helpful to you. With that, my friends, I'm going to call it quits for tonight. Thank you so much for being with me and for staying to the end. That is fantastic. I really do appreciate that. And I look forward to speaking with you soon. And I look forward to hopefully having you in the course soon as well. Take care and have a great evening. Bye for now.